Welcome to the Blue Collar Nation podcast, the podcast dedicated to making the lives of home service professionals better. Now join Eric and Larry to talk about all things home service.
Larry and Eric with SuperTech University, and we can count really good today. We've been practicing.
There we go.
So we're going to do a short talk about objections, a little bit of an extension from what we did last week because we had a lot of feedback and Eric has some more information.
Types of price shoppers, not so much objections.
Okay, types of price shopper. There we go. See, that's why you're here. Keep me on track. So check it out.
All good.
SuperTech University runs this whole space, and we try to bring value to everybody. Our mission here is to run your business, to help you folks as owners and entrepreneurs run your business more successfully, more profitable, with more sanity, especially by having a great team around you. And what we present here is, in theory, it's practice of business skills that you can implement in your company too. We've dealt with things in our business, just like what Eric's going to be speaking about. Right now, we had a service business for over 10 years. We sold the company. We found some effective practices that we want to pass along to everybody. So you don't have to struggle to learn this stuff and implement this stuff like we did. Business is an extreme sport. I say that all the time. Eric said that once. It's like my favorite thing to say. Learn everything you can do so it doesn't kill you.
You say it, so I said it once and you stole it from me.
Yeah, I did. I use it all the time. It's like jumping out of a plane without a parachute. So it's all good.
Yeah. All right. Cool. All right. Well, yeah, we're doing part 2, Larry, today. We did part 1 yesterday or last week. I couldn't get through the whole thing because it was big. So I'll do a quick recap, not in depth at all, but just, there's a whole bunch of different types of price shoppers or bargain hunters or whatever you want to call it. And, it's something we have to deal with. And then, for the people who missed week 1, Larry, is there a way for people to throw in the chat and I could send them a slide deck that I use when I teach this to people, like so that they could get it if they missed the first part?
Yeah, if you folks like that, throw your email address in the chat or give us speak up and I'll get it to you because I've got Mo's and Abraham here. And a bunch of other people. There's phone numbers here. So I'm not sure where they are.
Perfect. Okay, so last week I talked real quick about, what we call the anchored bargain hunter, which is that person who sees like a price online, but there's no context to it. And they are just anchored to that price and they just keep hammering that price and the scope of work might not be anything to do with that price and then how we overcome that. And then our second type is the budget constrained buyer, right? The person who literally just doesn't have the money. And, we talked about the things that we can do to maybe change the scope of work and find third-party financing and all that things, because really what keeps them from buying is they're just constrained. So we have to try to work within their constraint. And then the type 3 that we talked about last week is the distrustful skeptic, that person that no matter what we tell them on the bid or no matter what we say, they don't believe us, right? They think we're full of it, right? So we're going to have to provide a lot of proof to that person. Then we have the 4th type, Larry, which is the commoditizer, where they try to make it like every company that does what you do is all the same and it's just nothing's different and it's only the price. Right, it all comes down to price, right? Larry and I used to get that in carpet cleaning a lot. They'd be like, "Oh, all carpet cleaners are the same." Now what we had to do is overcome that by showing what the differences are, right? Then we have the control seeker or the negotiator, the person who, when you get to their house, they already have that, whatever your price is, they're going to get 30% off that, or like they are going to negotiate this. And I think the fun in it for them is to see how low they can get you to go. Right. And then leads us to today, right? So this is type 6, right? Which is the information overloader, right? Hold on, I'm going to let Abraham back in. The information overloader is the person who they have researched everything. They're your engineers and your doctors and your attorneys on a disc. They'd be very high C, right? They're going to really get a lot of information. And they ask lots of technical questions. And they also may be paralyzed because they have so much information, they don't know what to do with it, right? And a lot of times for us, as we're on a bid, that person, they think they have a lot of knowledge, and we need to make sure that we give them some credit for doing their homework, right? Because that they're going to feel better about us if we say, wow, Larry, you really did your homework, right? And Larry's like, yeah, I did. But then the thing is like, cool, I'm glad I'm here. Let me provide some context to all that information that you got, right? So what's our job? Our job is to put it in perspective for them. Because just because we have a lot of information about something doesn't mean that we really know how to put it all together and how it should work, right? And this person will buy once we simplify the decision-making process, because we've added that context to say, well, here's the things that matter. Here's the things that probably aren't that important, especially in your situation. Here's why. And here's the options that we can give you, right? And all of a sudden, they're doing that, right? So what's our response path to that? It's sort the research into the priorities, right? They've researched everything, but it's like a shotgun method. They know every single thing a little bit about it, but they don't have anywhere idea where it goes, right? So we have to then start working backwards. Like, well, what's the end goal, Larry, that we're trying to get to? Okay, great. It's this, and this. All right, let's look at all the things that you researched. These things no longer apply to your situation. These are the things that we care about, right? And then we're going to summarize the options so that now we're simplifying for that person who's taken in a massive amount of information. And we're going to recommend probably one path, right? We're going to say, look, I've got 3 options for you. To be honest, Larry, this option looks like your baby. This is the one that I think you'd really do best with, right? And then I'm going to now define the next step, because they've done so much homework, they might be paralyzed and just kind of stuck in homework mode. Now I got to get them into taking action mode, right? And they don't buy for 2 reasons. Number one, they don't feel like they know enough, right? That person that's a researcher, they don't want to feel stupid if they make a mistake on the buying process. So they're not going to buy until they're confident that they understand what we're talking about. So the thing is that if we can take the complexity out of it and give them a couple good solid options to choose from, they're going to feel good about us. Here's the thing, the information overloader, it's a longer sales process. You're going to have to put some time. You better settle in. Take your jacket off. Like you're going to be there for a while. Larry used to hate this. He'd be like, "Oh my gosh, I was with this information overloader, and I was there for 3 hours to get the sale." I was like, "Did you get the sale?" "Yeah, I got the sale." "Okay, time well spent." Right? Like, I mean, not every bid's 3 hours, but you're going to be there longer than that person is just like, "Hey, cool, let's go." Right? So that's the information overloader. Type 7. The previous bad experience buyer, right? We've all been burned. Every one of us has been completely burned by somebody before. And then what happens? We're super gun shy. And then we start saying all tradespeople, like, you ever heard anybody say that? All tradespeople are criminals. It's like, well, that means that you got hurt by somebody at some point, right? So what are we going to hear? They're going to mention that they were burned. They're going to talk about surprise charges, or they billed me something after the fact, or I kept having to call them back and it was like pulling teeth to get them to come back here. Or, the last guy said, like we're now involved in all of their mental baggage around having work done around their house. And look, that's not easy, because we're probably nothing like the company that burned them. But the thing is now we've got to earn their trust. We've got to do that, right? So how do we do that? Well, the first thing is we have to empathize without getting way into the details, right? I don't want to go way down in the weeds into what happened because I wasn't there. But I can empathize with that person. "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Oh, that's terrible. Like, I have 500 5-star reviews. Let me show you those. I can assure you, Larry, that we're not that company," right? And I'm going to start showing some social proof, not me just saying it, because they've already been burned by somebody who just said something. I now have to prove that we're not that company, right? I'm going to ask them what went wrong. I mean, we used to do this. I mean, it's a different scenario, but it's the same concept. When we used to do water damage restoration. And when you get there, people are freaked out, right? This is a bad event. Their house is underwater. You know what the first thing they wanted to do? They wanted to tell us all about what happened, right? So, first question that Larry and I would say is, "Hey, Larry, I'm so sorry this happened to you. Tell me what happened." And then they're going to go on some elaborate story about what happened. Why am I doing that? I'm showing that I care, but I'm also letting it get off their chest so that I can then hopefully move forward, right? So, we're going to have to let this person tell us about the baggage so that we can move forward. Now I'm going to start doing a contrast. Like I'm going to use that information with what they told me about the bad contractor, and I'm going to start taking bullet points and contrasting that we're a completely different company than that. And here's why. Here's the social proof of all the things that people are saying about us. Here's our process. Here's our 6-step process or 12-step process, right? And I'm going to go through that whole thing. And then I'm going to make my promises very specific. And Larry used to do this all the time. Larry was very good at, he'd say, look, we're not perfect. We might screw something up too. But our guarantee is if we screw something up, we're going to take responsibility and we're not going to make you wait. We're going to be back and fix it. Right. Once that person has gotten to the point where they believe you with all the other stuff, they'll probably accept the fact that you're giving them a personal guarantee. Right. So, they're going to buy once we can put the fear aside. We have to help them put the fear aside that was an isolated incident and that's not going to happen with us. We're going to be, explaining our process. And I'm going to show them all kinds of social proof of all the great things that people are saying about our company, right? It's better coming from a third party than coming from me. If you could pull up the Google or you could pull up the Yelp or show all the awards that you've won or whatever it might be, that's going to make them feel better. And until we can overcome their past story, they're not going to be moving forward with us, right? So like this is touchy-feely stuff, right? We can't try to rush this either because they're having a bad time, right? They've had a bad time in the past, right? Type number 8. The deal identity shopper, right? Oh, I love a good deal. I'm a bargain shopper. How many people do you know that they wear the fact that they're frugal or a bargain shopper on their sleeve, right? They love to say how much they got off things. They never, ever pay full price for anything or whatever, right? And, what they're really saying is I'm proud of winning. They want to win. They feel like they won something when they didn't pay full price, right? And they might even brag about, beating vendors down and all that. And right, for us, that's tough because you're sitting there going, well, that's not going to be me. Right now, I'm not lowering my price, right? So, it's a bit of a quandary, right? So what do? We start giving them things. You say, look, I'm not going to be able to come off price, Larry. But what I can do is I can do these other things. I can put you on priority scheduling. I can throw in a maintenance package, right? Which we know probably doesn't cost us a lot of money, or I can, give you these choices, right? You're going to have to reframe what you're doing to get it away from price, right? Larry and I used to do this in carpet cleaning all the time. When we thought we might have a price shopper on our hands, we would give a few things first. Right. So we would throw in doing the closets for free. And then maybe we'd pick one small room that we would say, okay, so when we go do the bid, we go, hey, you know what? I'm going to throw all the closets in. And that back bedroom, that small one, I'm going to give you that. Right. Nope. That's on us. Right now, as they start to want to negotiate, it's like, whoa. I already gave you all of this stuff for free because I like you. Right. So what am I doing? I'm like, I don't have any more to give. But what have I done? I've controlled what I want to give because I know that those things are valuable, but they don't cost me a lot of money. Right? I don't like coming off my main price. I'd rather give a little bit. Right. So, I'm going to be talking about priority scheduling. I'm going to talk about maintenance plans. I'm going to talk about, choices they might have. I'm going to talk about what I've already given them. And if I can reframe the scope of work and they feel like they won something, right? Or maybe I'm even holding back a couple things and they say, well, I'm not going to go unless you throw some. All right, let me throw this in, right? I already know I got a couple things I can throw in where they felt like they won, but it didn't really affect me at all. It didn't affect my job profitability. I can do that, right? And they don't buy if they feel like they have to pay. They just don't pay full price. They're just not full price people, right? So that's really your deal identity shopper. And then lastly, well, actually, two more. We have the spouse shopper, right? I got to talk to my husband. I got to talk to my wife. They shop by committee, right? And everybody hates when that happens. You're on a bid and you're doing the dog and pony show, and it's like, oh, I got to talk to my husband, or I got to talk to my wife, or whatever. Number one, before we even move on, that means we didn't do a good enough job qualifying to ask if all the decision makers are going to be there, right? Or then we're going to say, oh, Mr. Smith isn't here. Will we be able to get him on the phone so that I can give you the price together, right? I want to try to do away with the whole talk to my spouse thing up front, right? I think that's crucial, or we're wasting a lot of time, right? So, they don't buy until both parties get the same story, get the same value proposition from us, and are on the same page, right? That way, neither one of them is upsetting the other, right? So one person might be the person who's willing to buy everything, and the other person might be the one who's tight the purse strings or the wallet, right? We've got to appeal to both of them, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I get both of them there. And look, they might still both be there. I'm going to, I'm going to summarize. I'm going to show photos. I'm going to give option sheets so that they can choose, right? That's why I love selling in packages, guys, right? It's not if yes or no, it's which one do you want? I'm going to have packages, hopefully, that are appealing to all budgets and all desires, right? And I'm going to get that other person on the call. Like, even if I had done the whole inspection and now all of a sudden I didn't qualify well enough, I would schedule a time to come back, or I'd schedule a time to do a Zoom call when they can both get on there. Because as soon as you give one person the bid, they're just going to turn that into the other person, and all they see is the price. They didn't see you. They didn't make a connection with you. They didn't see how nice your truck is. They didn't see your inspection. They didn't see how well you're dressed you are. You're truly a commodity if that other person isn't there. And we don't want to be a commodity. We want to sell value, right? You're going to make more money if you sell value, right? So the thing is that we have to make sure that we overcome the idea of being expensive by having both people understand what a great job we can do for them. And then lastly, the emergency pain buyer, right? They don't do their preventative maintenance. They don't take good care of their house, or they just had something that happened like really fast, right? And, what we're getting from that person is they had, an urgent event. They're stressed out. They need it fixed right now, and they're not in a good place. Kind of like Larry and I used to have all the time with the water damage, right? They're just not in their best place to be, right? And, they're not going to buy if they feel like we're exploiting them during a point of crisis, right? We can't go in and just throw some big number and go, when they do buy is when we lead with calm, like, hey, I'm so sorry this happened to you. Let's take a breath, like, deal with this all the time. I can help. Let me explain how. Why don't you tell me what happened? So again, getting it off their chest, right? I'm gonna, and then I'm gonna give I'll give a triage price, right? Like, look, we can get you back to somewhat normal for this, or we can start talking about some other options if you want to keep going, right? And I'm gonna be clear about price, and I'm gonna be talking safety, 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 safety all the time, right? Because they're in a situation usually where the house probably isn't safe, or the situation isn't safe. And I'm going to continuously reassure them that everything's going to be okay, right? You got to put your empathy hat on again with this person. They're freaked out, right? And, I wouldn't overplay that, like, if you don't take this right now, I'm going to leave, right? They're going to be a little slower to make a decision than you probably would like because they're just kind of in shock, right? So we have to make sure that we take all, like, we strip it all down for them because they're in such a crisis mode and just give them the basics, right? And then try to get them to go ahead. And if at any point they feel exploited or like you're trying to take advantage of the fact that they're having a crisis, they're kicking you out of the house, right? They're not going to buy, right? So we have to, again, if you see so many of these, they're empathy positions, right? Look, we're human beings selling to other human beings. No matter who on this 10 types of price shoppers we are, we're still dealing with people. And we have to figure out as salespeople or estimators or comfort advisors or whatever you are, we have to figure out what is that person's motivation? What does that person care about? How do I communicate what they really need? And then how do I get the price that I want and need, right? Because at the end of the day, just because we're dealing with somebody who's a price shopper doesn't mean that we're going to lower our price. We have to find other ways to work with them to show value. Right?
Thank you for listening to the Blue Collar Nation podcast. For more information about Eric and Larry and Supertech University, please visit us at supertechu.com. That is supertechu.com.